Good evening, students. This video is for the functional areas of frontal lobe of cerebrum. I will tell you in this video about what is the function of the frontal lobe of the cerebral hemisphere. Now, these functional areas of the cerebrums, they are residing within the gray matter of the cerebral cortex in their sulci and gyri. So, the specific functions are performed by various sulci and gyri of the cerebral cortex. Okay. The best known schemes to map out this functional area is that of Brodmann. The Brodmann was the scientist who has found these functional areas in the various sulci and gyri of the cerebral hemisphere, and he named, instead of naming, he just gave the number to these various functional areas. Now these functional areas of the cerebrals, which are given up to the 47 numbers. Okay, so he has mapped the cerebral cortex in 47 areas in each cerebral hemisphere, right as well as the left cerebral hemisphere. Now these functional areas are ultimately classified into three different categories. These functional areas may be sensory area, it may be motor area, or association area. So let us see what are sensory, motor and association areas which are in the cerebral hemisphere. Okay, when we see the sensory area, this diagram shows the various sensory and motor and association area. Now the sensory areas are the areas of cerebral cortex or sulci and gyri which receives the various kind of sensation. For example, the exteroceptive sensation which comes from the skin, they are pain, touch and temperature. Then the proprioceptive sensation which comes from that of the muscle, tendons and joint, ligaments, they are the proprioceptive sensation and they are going to the cerebral cortex. Similarly, many spatial sense, they are also going into the specific cerebral areas or sulci and gyri. For example, the visual area or area for vision is 17 number, where I am moving the pointer. This is the area 17 in the occipital lobe near the occipital pole, and then there may be the other areas, for example area 41 and 42. This is an auditory area. Okay, so in this way there are many sensory area. For example, in the post central gyrus, area number 3, 1 and 2, this is mostly for the exteroceptive and the proprioceptive sensory impulses. Similarly, the motor areas are responsible for the contraction of the skeletal muscle to produce the mostly the voluntary movement. And this motor area, the area number 4, the precentral gyrus, which is in front of the central sulcus, is a primary motor area. The stimulation of this cortex lead to the contraction of the skeletal muscle. There are some more motor areas, what is called as the premotor areas, frontal eye field and many others are here. Now coming to the third kind of the areas which are located in the cerebral hemisphere, either right or left cerebral hemisphere, they are said to be the association areas. Okay, they are not pure motor, neither pure sensory, but they are association, and a large part of the cerebral cortex is having the association area. Up to the 70% of the cerebral cortex is having the association cortex or association area. Now what is the function of this association area? Their function is to interpret the various type of the sensory stimuli as well as motor stimuli too, and in relation to their past experience. For example, if we see this example of the vision, a primary visual area is 70, where ultimately the fibers from the retina or the vision from the retina is perceived or it is realized, but you will not be able to understand about what you are seeing. Okay, you will not be able to recognize the object you are seeing unless and until this 17 area project onto the association area 18 and 19, which is functioning based on the past experience. For example, you are seeing a person, it is seen by the area number 17, but till the impulses will go to the area number 18 and 19, you will not be able to recognize that person, that you have met him in the past also, his name is like that. Okay, like particular person. Okay, the identification will be only from area 18 and 19. This is the function of the association areas of the cerebral hemisphere. Now let us, with this brief introduction about the functions of the functional areas in the cerebral cortex are various lobe, that is frontal, parietal, occipital and temporal lobe. Now we will confine only to the functional area of the frontal lobe. Okay, so what are those areas which are located in the frontal cortex or the frontal lobe? Most of the frontal lobe, which is in front of the central sulcus, okay, it is mostly motor in nature, and motor, not only motor, but this is the area which is responsible for making the judgments and foresightness. Okay, or ultimately the personality of an individual is also determined by the frontal lobe, his intelligence, his behavior and etc. All are depending on the front. So there are many functions which are located in this frontal lobe. We will see them one by one. What are those areas? Let us see. The first area is the primary motor area. See this, where pointer is moving. This is the area number 4, what is called as primary motor area, which lies in front of the central sulcus on this supralateral surface. But the part of this primary motor area is also on the medial surface. Okay, just beyond this border, that is the supromedial border. Okay, on the medial surface a part of this area is also extending. This is the premotor area. This is now in front of this area number 4. This area number 6 is the premotor area. In front of the premotor area and in the middle frontal gyrus posteriormost part, there is an area number 8 which is called as the frontal eye field. Okay, this is the third kind of the area located in the frontal lobe. Then another area is here, prefrontal cortex. That means superior, middle and inferior temporal gyrus in front of this frontal eye field and the prefrontal cortex. Okay, premotor cortex. All this large area of the frontal lobe near the frontal pole, and behind this, okay, on all surfaces, that is supralateral, medial and the orbital surface, this is the area of the prefrontal cortex. Okay, then there is a specialized area also located in the inferior frontal gyrus, what is called as the motor speech area of the Broca 44 and 45 area. This is necessary for the production of the language. Let us see the primary motor area first. Okay, that is area number 4. Now this motor cortex, okay, which is present area number 4, okay, this is responsible for generation of the motor impulses. Okay, the signals are generated which ultimately goes to the skeletal muscle, okay, and leads to the movement of the body. So this area 4, our primary motor area, it is located on supralateral surface, as well as in this diagram you see it is also part of it is located on the medial surface in front of the central sulcus. Okay, in front of the central sulcus. Now this functional area, okay, of the frontal lobe, which is called as the motor area 4 or the primary motor area. Okay, this is, as I said, is located in the frontal, I would say in the area number 4 in the precentral gyrus, and in this diagram you can see the in the precentral gyrus there is representation of the body. It is in the reverse direction, it is represented upside down. Okay, on the lowermost part there is the presence of the uh, larynx, musculature of larynx, muscles of mastications. Okay, then face, the lip area, and a large area is devoted to that of the hand, that is to the finger and to the thumb. Very small area is devoted to the arm, forearm, trunk, thigh, and that of the leg and the feet, which is on the medial aspect of the, or the medial surface of the frontal lobe. Okay, onto the frontal lobe. This diagram is called as the homunculus, and this represent the functional area representation of for the skeletal muscles. Actually they are movements and skeletal muscles which are represented. You can see here it is the representation is directly based on the skillful movement. For example, the larynx musculature which produce the sound, then the muscles of the lip and the muscles of facial expression. Similarly, the muscles of hand which are performing very skilled movement, precise movement, they have the larger area as compared to the area of the upper limb and the lower limb, where the muscle mass is much more, but then it is not performing the very skillful movement. So you must have understood that there is a difference. The more area, okay, in the this precentral gyrus is given to the skillful I mean to say movements, okay, of the body areas, and not to that of the muscle mass. Okay, now if there is a lesion of this area, that is the precentral gyrus area number 4, it will lead to the hemiplegia or the paralysis of the half of the body onto the opposite side, because the axons of the neurons which are in the area number 4 motor cortex area, they will go to the opposite side of the body after crossing in the pyramidal decussation. Okay, but this will not affect to the muscles of the head and neck, those which are having the double I mean to say now supply. That means the nuclei, motor nuclei of cranial nerves, they are innervated from both the side, right as well as left side. That's why they are spared. Only the paralysis will take place in the limbs and the trunk. Okay, opposite half of the limb, and that is called as hemiplegia. Now let us come to the second area of the frontal lobe, what is called as the premotor area, the area number 6, and this is located here just in front of the area number 4 on both the surface, superolateral as well as on the medial surface, okay, where it is called supplementary motor areas. Now this area number 6, okay, it is broad near the supromedial border, but as you will go lower down it becomes narrow. Okay, now this is the area which is involved in the planning and organizing the skilled movement, okay, and for the various action. This is responsible for initiation of the complex motor activities, and it is the, because why it is can perform the complex motor activity, because it is the storehouse of programs, various kind of programs for motor activity from our past experience. Okay, so this ultimately the area number 6 ultimately project on area number 4, which according to the direction received from area number 6, then area number 4 ultimately lead to the movements, okay, contraction of the muscles. Okay, now this area number 6 itself is under the control of the input fibers which are coming from basal nuclei via the thalamus, okay, via the thalamus. Now if there is a lesion of this area number 6, then this will produce difficulty in performance of the skilled movement. As I have said that this is the site where the skilled movements are stored on the basis of their past experience. Okay, so this completes area number 6. Now we are on the slide which shows the frontal eye field, and eye field which is here just in front of the area number 6 in the posterior end of the middle frontal gyrus. It is a part of the area number 8. Okay, thus this frontal eye field, it controls ultimately the conjugate eye movement and also the visual attention along with the movements of the eye. So this is responsible for the conjugate eye movements. Okay, and if there is a lesion of this frontal eye field area, this will lead to the deviation of both the eyes, okay, right as well as left eye on the side of the deviation. I mean on the side where the lesion. Suppose if the lesion is in the left cerebral hemisphere, both the right and left eyes will deviate towards the left side. Okay, so this is the third area of the frontal lobe, what is called as the frontal eye field. Okay, let's come to another important area which is located in the inferior frontal gyrus. Here, see here, this is the Broca's areas of the motor speech, because the sensory speech I have already taken in the last video, that is Wernicke area of the sensory speech, which is here. Okay, now this is the motor area number 44 and 45, located in the inferior frontal gyrus here. Okay, just at the root of the lateral sulcus or stem of the lateral sulcus. Okay, now this area 44 and 45 is usually present into the left cerebral hemisphere. Okay, that is called as the dominant hemisphere for the right-handed peoples. Okay, and this motor speech area receives the organized and composed words and sentences from this Wernicke's sensory speech area. Okay, speech area through this arcuate fasciculus. This, see where the pointer is moving through this arcuate fasciculus, it receives the sensory speech input into the motor speech, and then it formulates and plan the Broca's area. First formulate and plan for speaking and pass this information to the motor cortex for speech. Now here in a very light yellow area, this is the motor cortex area, okay, which is controlling the movement of the muscles of the mouth, tongue, lips, okay, and the movements of the lower jaw, right, which and vocal cords, which are all necessary for production of the speech, the motor speech. Motor cortex with the movement of vocal cords, lips, tongue, teeth, that means mandible, palate, this produces the articulated speech. Thus, the function of this Broca's area number 44 and 46, sorry, 45, is to produce the speech, motor speech, which we speak. Now, what is motor aphasia? Okay, it is a loss of ability to speak. They persons which are suffering from motor aphasia due to destruction of Broca's area number 44 and 45, they can recognize the words or they can read the sentence by seeing it, or they can see the sign, okay, by seeing or by hearing. Okay, they can hear the words perfectly, but they are unable to speak. If you will ask them what is your name, they are understanding what is being asked to them, but they will not be able to speak. That is called as motor aphasia. In this condition, the lips, tongue, lower jaw and larynx are intact, but due to the lesion of motor speech area, Broca area 44 and 45, they are unable to produce the speech. Okay, that is called as motor aphasia. Okay, that is called as and this is due to the failure to generate the motor impulse by the Broca's area. Now coming to the last functional area of the frontal cortex, what is called as prefrontal area. It is a large area on superolateral surface, medial surface and the orbital surface, okay, extending into the superior, middle and inferior frontal gyri in front of the prefrontal, premotor and the eye field, okay, and just above the Broca's area. So this is a large part of the frontal lobe, anterior to motor and the premotor area. The function of this prefrontal area is to regulate our thought, our action, our emotion, our foresightedness, our moral and ethical awareness. So lot of the functions are stored in this prefrontal area. Previously, when I was a student, it was thought that this prefrontal area is not doing any function, it is a silent area. But since last 20-30 years, okay, so many functions has been attributed to this prefrontal area. Okay, so it is concerned ultimately with the personality of individual, whether you are a good person or you are bad persons, where you are liked by others or you are hated by others, ultimately depends on your prefrontal area. Now, if there is a lesion of the prefrontal area here, okay, there will be change in the personality, because I said that the prefrontal area determines the personality of an individual, and if it is destroyed by accident or by any surgery, because this surgery, what was called as the frontal lobectomy, were very common, okay, in the beginning of the 20th century, because it was thought that if you will cut the prefrontal, I mean say this prefrontal cortex, then the person's, okay, um, this psychological disease will be cured. Okay, so there is a, after the destruction of prefrontal area, there is a change in the personality, because personality depends on the prefrontal cortex. He doesn't suffer from anxiety. That means now previously he was too anxious, okay, too worried, okay. Now after that he is not suffering from any anxiety, okay, or the depression or frustration, okay. He doesn't care for others. That means he is not bothering for the others. The feeling of the becomes rude, okay, because he is not bothered for others. He become rude and inconsiderate for the others, okay. He will not have any consideration for the others. He will not bother for them, okay. He will become selfish. What I mean to say, he becomes careless also, okay. He is not bothered about his clothing, he is not bothered about his hairs, okay. He can do something which is not permissible in front of the others, okay. He become lazy, incapable of judging. That means he cannot have the judgment itself, okay, judging. Then he doesn't understand what will be the consequences of his action. That means if I will not study properly for my exam, I am going to fail. That judgment a normal individual has. This kind of the judgment, what will happen after this particular action, he is not unable to calculate beforehand. That means he is not having the foresightedness, okay. This completes the, I mean to say, the various functional areas of the frontal lobe of the cerebral hemisphere. Thank you very much for watching this video.